Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, and only you know it's crumbling. Every headline, every tweet whispers about market corrections, AI innovations, inflation cooling. But beneath the noise, the real crisis has already begun. Welcome to the financial crisis nobody is ready for, and this is your Zero to CEO final alert. Consider this your wake-up call. The world is moving at full speed, yet most people are walking blindfolded. They scroll, they swipe, they repeat the same routine, and while they're distracted, the foundations beneath their feet are cracking. That's the alarm nobody's heard, not because it isn't ringing, but because it's drowned out by noise, comfort, and denial. And here's the truth, by the time most people realize it, it will already be too late. Think about it. Every headline talks about growth, innovation, and opportunity, but behind the curtain sits the real story, one that never makes it to the dinner table. Consumer debt is skyrocketing. Corporate leverage is worse than it looks. The global system is stretched like a rubber band pulled to its limit. Everyone thinks they'll get a warning before it snaps. But history shows that markets don't whisper when they break. They collapse suddenly and brutally. That's the silence of the coming storm. No bell will ring on Wall Street to announce the beginning of the crisis. No news anchor will tell you to move your money before the banks lock their doors. The moment you see it on TV, the damage is already done. That's why the alarm isn't something you hear, it's something you sense if you're awake. And right now, very few people are awake. The mistake most people make is trusting comfort. They see jobs still paying, credit cards still swiping, stocks still climbing, and they assume the system is stable. But the truth is, stability is often the illusion before collapse. In 2007, the system looked untouchable. Real estate was soaring, banks were confident, and every expert claimed the fundamentals were strong. Then, within months, Lehman Brothers was gone, markets were crashing, and life savings were wiped out. The alarm had been ringing for years. Bad mortgages, hidden leverage, unchecked greed. But nobody paid attention because the surface looked calm. That same calm exists right now. Here's the reality nobody wants to face. Crises are not rare accidents. They're patterns, they're cycles. And when the pressure builds up long enough, the release is always violent. Look at the signs: record household debt, interest rates climbing higher than most young investors have ever seen in their lifetimes, housing markets pricing out entire generations, and corporations leaning on buybacks instead of real growth. Add to that an unstable geopolitical climate, supply chains stretched thin, and a new layer of AI-driven trading that magnifies volatility instead of reducing it. This isn't stability, it's tinder waiting for a spark. But here's the most dangerous part. People are unprepared because they've been conditioned not to prepare. Schools don't teach financial literacy. Governments promise safety nets that can't possibly cover everyone in a systemic collapse. And individuals assume tomorrow will look like today. That's why when the crash hits, most won't know what to do. They'll freeze, they'll panic. They'll wait for someone else to solve their problems, and by then, the damage will already be irreversible. The alarm nobody's heard is not about fear, it's about clarity. It's about training yourself to hear what the crowd ignores. Discipline is born in chaos, but you don't wait for chaos to arrive before you build it. You get lean before the storm, not during it. You cut waste, you sharpen your focus, and you make yourself resilient. That's how you go from being a victim of the system to being one of the few who rise when others are falling. Look at history's biggest winners. They weren't the ones who thrived in easy times. They were the ones who used hard times as fuel. Companies like Airbnb, Uber, and WhatsApp weren't born in sunshine. They were born in the middle of the 2008 financial meltdown. When others froze, they executed. When others hid, they built. That's the mindset that separates survivors from leaders. So, what does that mean for you right now? It means stop assuming everything is fine just because you can still swipe your card. Start running your life like the crisis has already started. Audit your finances, diversify your income streams, build liquidity, strengthen your skills. Most importantly, Detach yourself from the illusion that governments or corporations will save you. They won't, they'll save themselves, and the only way you stay ahead is by thinking, acting, and preparing like a leader before the rest of the world wakes up. This isn't about paranoia, it's about positioning. Imagine the moment the cracks turn into a collapse, stocks tank, jobs vanish, credit dries up. While most are panicking, those who prepared are calm. They have reserves, they have focus, and they're ready to capture opportunities that only appear in crisis. That's how fortunes are built, by the few who didn't need to hear the alarm because they already felt it in their bones. Right now, you have a choice. You can keep walking with the crowd, distracted by noise, blind to reality, and hope someone saves you when the floor collapses. Or you can wake up, hear the alarm nobody else has, and start building your foundation before the storm. By the time the headlines catch up, it'll be too late for most people. But not for you. Not if you act now. The clock is ticking, the cracks are widening, and silence is never safety. The alarm is ringing, you just have to be willing to hear it, and if you do, you won't just survive the next financial crisis, you'll own it. Every great story begins at the bottom. Not in comfort, not in certainty, but in raw chaos where nothing feels secure and everything seems impossible. That's the place most people fear, but it's also the place where true leaders are born. Ground zero is not your end point, it's the ignition point. It's the moment where you decide whether you stay broken or you rise and build. From ground zero to CEO isn't just a phrase, it's a mindset, a discipline, a relentless refusal to stay down. Most people wait for perfect conditions before they start. They think they need the right timing, the right savings, the right network, the right background. That's the myth. The truth is, the people who rise don't start with everything. They start with nothing but urgency. They don't wait for permission. They create momentum out of thin air. They take the scraps, the rejection, the failures, and they turn them into fire. And when others finally notice them, it looks like overnight success. But overnight success is always built in silence at ground zero when nobody is watching. Ground zero is the moment you've lost everything you thought you had or realized you never had much to begin with. It's the point where excuses run out. It's when the bank account is empty, the opportunities look scarce, and the world isn't cheering you on. That's the most dangerous place, and the most powerful place. Because when you're stripped of everything, you finally see what's left, and what's left is willpower, resourcefulness, and vision. That's the raw material every CEO is built on. Think about the biggest companies today. Many were born in garages, dorm rooms, or tiny apartments with nothing but a laptop and an idea. Their founders didn't have investors lined up, they didn't have trust funds to lean on, and they didn't have a perfect plan. They had grit, they had an unreasonable belief that they could build something bigger than themselves. That's the bridge between zero and CEO. It isn't money, it isn't luck, it's an obsession that refuses to quit. From the outside, people look at CEO and assume they were always powerful, always wealthy, always in control. But rewind the tape, and you'll see a very different picture. You'll see risks, taking when everything was on the line. You'll see late nights, early mornings, countless failures, and moments where quitting seemed easier than continuing. But quitting never produces leaders. Quitting never produces builders. Quitting produces comfort, and comfort produces mediocrity. The ones who rise are the ones who choose to keep moving even when ground zero feels like quicksand. The transformation happens the moment you stop seeing ground zero as a curse and start seeing it as your advantage. Think about it. When you've got nothing to lose. That's freedom, that's leverage. The fear of losing disappears because loss already happened. What's left is raw focus. You stop trying to protect what you don't have and start building what you want. That's when you tap into a level of execution that people with comfort can't even imagine. The difference between those who stay stuck at ground zero and those who rise to CEO is the decision to act without certainty. Everyone wants guarantees, everyone wants to know their effort will pay off, but certainty is a luxury you earn later. At the beginning, all you have is faith, action, and persistence. And those three ingredients are worth more than a trust fund or a perfect plan because they build muscle, resilience, and character. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. The next crisis, the next downturn, the next disruption will push millions back to their own ground zero. And while most will panic, complain, or blame the system, a select few will treat it as their opportunity. They'll see it as their proving ground. They'll recognize that ground zero isn't punishment, it's the reset button that levels the playing field. And those who move with clarity and aggression in those moments become the new leaders everyone follows later. The path from ground zero to CEO is not glamorous. It's not Instagram quotes and polished podcasts. It's ugly. It's rejection emails, failed launches, stout credit cards, and sleepless nights. It's people laughing at your ideas, doubting your vision, telling you you're wasting your time, but that's fuel. Every dismissal is energy. Every closed door forces you to find another way, and every obstacle is a test to prove how much you actually want it. Because if you break at the first obstacle, you were never meant to lead. So what does it really take? It takes the decision to move when others stand still. It takes the courage to execute when everyone else is overthinking. It takes a refusal to let temporary pain define permanent destiny. At ground zero, there's only one direction left up, but up doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design, by persistence, by an obsession to never settle. From ground zero to CEO is not just about business. It's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle weight, pressure, and responsibility. It's about training yourself to see problems as opportunities and setbacks as stepping stones. And when you finally reach the point of leadership, you don't forget where you came from. You carry ground zero with you as a reminder that you built something from nothing, and that nothing can take away the skills, mindset, and resilience you forged there. Ground zero is not the end of the story. It's the beginning. And if you choose to rise, if you choose to act, if you choose to execute when everyone else is waiting, you won't just move forward, you'll transform. You'll go from invisible to undeniable, from nothing to something, from ground zero. To CEO, every empire falls not because of the strength of its enemies, but because of the weakness within its own walls. The same is true for financial systems, businesses, and even personal lives. The downfall doesn't usually start with something obvious. It starts with the cracks nobody paid attention to, the small weaknesses ignored because they were inconvenient to fix. Those hidden weak links are everywhere right now, buried under the illusion of stability, and they will decide who survives and who collapses when the pressure hits. Look closely at the global economy and you'll see the surface looks polished. Markets are hitting highs, unemployment rates sound encouraging, and optimism is sold daily through headlines. But beneath that surface lies fragility. Consumer debt is at historic levels. Student loans and credit card balances are suffocating households, and corporate leverage has quietly ballooned. Everyone is playing the game of confidence, pretending it's all under control. But confidence isn't control. Confidence is borrowed time. History has taught this lesson over and over. In 2008, the hidden weak link was the subprime mortgage market. For years, banks and institutions acted like those loans were stable. They packaged them, sold them, and celebrated profits. On the surface, the system looked unstoppable, but underneath, a mountain of toxic debt was waiting. The moment the cracks spread, the entire global economy collapsed. Millions lost jobs, homes, and savings, not because the whole system was weak, but because one hidden link snapped, and everything chained to it went down. Today, the weak links are different, but the pattern is the same. Look at housing markets where prices are completely detached from wages. Look at governments piling up trillions in debt while pretending inflation is under control. Look at corporations burning cash to buy back shares instead of investing in real growth. These aren't signs of health. They're signs of fragility disguised as strength, and the more they are ignored, the more dangerous they become. Technology has added another layer of hidden risk. Artificial intelligence and algorithmic trading drive enormous chunks of the financial markets. They promise efficiency, but in reality, they amplify volatility. When machines move billions in microseconds, small triggers become tidal waves. A glitch, a miscalculation, or a coordinated panic can spread faster than humans can react. That's not stability, it's fragility hiding in plain sight. The same applies to supply chains. The pandemic exposed just how fragile global systems truly are. One disruption in one region sent shockwaves across industries worldwide. Shelves emptied, factories halted, and businesses folded. That was a warning shot. Yet even now, the world continues to rely on stretched networks that can collapse from geopolitical tensions, cyber attacks, or natural disasters. Weak links don't vanish on their own. They grow until they break, and let's talk about individuals. The weakest link for most people is their dependency. One job, one paycheck, one skill set. That's not security, that's vulnerability. If the job disappears or the paycheck stops, their entire life unravels. And while they chase comfort, they ignore the truth. Resilience isn't built in times of ease. It's built by diversifying skills, income streams, and perspectives. Just like economies, people fall apart when their hidden weak links are exposed. The reason weak links are so dangerous is simple. They don't look dangerous until it's too late. They hide under the illusion of strength. A bridge looks sturdy until the rust inside the steel gives way. A company looks unstoppable until its debt load strangles it. A family looks stable until one medical bill, one job loss, one crisis destroys their fragile structure. Weak links live in denial, and denial is always expensive. The lesson here isn't about panic, it's about awareness. Leaders don't wait for weak links to snap. They hunt for them. They audit systems, test pressure points, and confront the uncomfortable truths before disaster forces their hand. That's what separates those who lead from those who collapse. Weak links are opportunities in disguise, because once you identify them, you can strengthen them, and strengthening them gives you an advantage that most people never build. The financial crisis nobody is ready for won't be about the obvious. It won't start with headlines announcing doom. It will start quietly, in the corners nobody's watching. A corporate default here, a credit crunch there, an algorithm gone rogue, a supply chain breakdown, and suddenly the dominoes fall. Those who only looked at the surface will be blindsided. Those who searched for the hidden weak links will already have moved, adjusted, and positioned themselves to not just survive, but to capture opportunities in the chaos. Every system, economic, corporate, or personal, is only as strong as its weakest link. Ignore it, and the collapse is inevitable. Identify it, and you hold the power. Right now, the weak links are there for anyone willing to look. Unsustainable debt, inflated assets, fragile technology, overstretched supply chains, and complacent individuals. Most will keep pretending those cracks don't exist, but the few who acknowledge them, prepare for them, and turn them into strengths will stand tall when everything else falls apart. The future doesn't belong to the ones who trust the surface. It belongs to the ones who dig deeper, see the flaws, and fix them before they break. Weak links don't have to destroy you. They can define you, sharpen you, and separate you from the masses. Because when the chains start snapping, the ones who rise are always the ones who already knew where the cracks were. Chaos is the ultimate test. It strips away illusions, exposes weaknesses, and forces choices you can't postpone. In chaos, comfort dies and discipline is born. You don't discover what you're truly made of when things are easy. You discover it when the ground shakes, when certainty disappears, when the world stops following the script you had in your head. That's where leaders are forged. That's where those who endure rise and those who pretend collapse. The mistake most people make is wishing chaos away. They pray for calm seas and predictable days, but calm seas never create great sailors. Predictable days never sharpen instincts. It's only in turbulence that you're forced to build discipline, because discipline is not natural. It's trained, it's earned, it's demanded by environments that don't care about your excuses. Think about the last major crisis the world faced. Businesses shuttered, jobs evaporated, and economies froze overnight. Millions panicked because their lives were built on autopilot. Their habits, their finances, their decisions, everything depended on normalcy. The moment chaos hit, they had no structure to fall back on. That's the difference between those who crumble and those who adapt. Discipline is the structure you build before the world falls apart. It's the invisible armor that lets you keep moving when everything else is breaking. Every empire, every company, every individual who made it to the top has one thing in common. They didn't avoid chaos, they endured it, they used it. They treated crisis as training. When markets crashed, when capital dried up, when doors slammed shut, they didn't sit and complain. They executed. They cut waste, they found focus, they got sharper. Chaos forced them to prioritize, to drop what didn't matter, to double down on what did, and out of that came resilience. Out of that came discipline. Look at history's most resilient businesses. Many of them were born in recessions or expanded during downturns. Why? Because chaos forced them to innovate leaner, move faster, and execute smarter. When money was scarce, they learned efficiency. When opportunity was scarce, they learned creativity. When doubt surrounded them, they learned conviction. Those lessons don't come in easy times because easy times don't demand them. But in chaos, survival demands discipline, and discipline becomes second nature. This is why chaos is not the enemy, it's the mentor. It doesn't care about your feelings, it doesn't bend to your timeline. It forces you to sharpen every edge, every skill, every decision. In normal times, you can get away with laziness, distraction, and half effort. Chaos doesn't allow that. Chaos demands precision. It demands consistency. It demands the ability to move forward without hesitation, even when you don't have certainty. Most people think discipline means rigid schedules, strict routines, or robotic behavior. That's surface-level discipline. Real discipline is deeper. It's the ability to control yourself when the world is uncontrollable. It's choosing long-term moves in the middle of short-term storms. It's executing when motivation is gone, when resources are scarce, when no one is clapping for you. That's the discipline born in chaos, the kind that stays even after the storm passes. There's a reason why some people look back at their hardest times and call them the most valuable seasons of their lives. It wasn't because those times were pleasant. It was because those times revealed their strength. Chaos cut away the noise and forced them to discover who they really were. It forced them to build systems, habits, and mindsets that carried them forward long after the chaos ended. Without the chaos, they never would have built that muscle. The question is, how do you handle chaos when it arrives? Do you freeze, complain, and wait for rescue? Or do you see it as your proving ground? Because make no mistake, chaos is coming. Economic storms, technological disruption, global instability. They're not possibilities, they're inevitabilities. The only variable is how prepared you are. And preparation isn't built in the moment of crisis. It's built every day in the choices you make when no one's watching. You build discipline now by tightening your focus, cutting distractions, and practicing execution in small ways so you're ready when the big storm hits. You train yourself to stay calm under pressure. You build the financial, physical, and mental resilience to keep moving when everyone else is paralyzed. Then, when chaos arrives, you don't panic, you perform. While the crowd loses its grip, you tighten yours. While they're searching for stability, you become the one creating it. And here's the ultimate shift. When you learn to thrive in chaos, you stop fearing it. You stop praying for calm seas because you realize chaos gives you the edge. It keeps you sharper than your competitors, hungrier than your peers, and more resilient than anyone relying on comfort. That's the unfair advantage. Because when the storm clears, and it always clears, you're not weaker. You're stronger, leaner, and ready to lead. Discipline is not born in silence. It's not born in comfort. It's not born when everything is predictable. Discipline is born when you're under fire, when everything feels uncertain, when the pressure is suffocating, and you keep going anyway. That's the DNA of resilience. That's the edge of leadership. And that's why the people who embrace chaos instead of resisting it will always come out on top. So the next time chaos arrives, don't run from it. Step into it. Treat it as the fire that forges you. Because once you've been disciplined by chaos, you carry that strength forever. The world can shake again, storms can come again, but you'll never break the same way twice. And that's how leaders are built. That's how empires are built. Chaos creates the environment, but discipline decides the outcome. This is the moment most people will wish they paid attention. The signs are everywhere, the cracks are visible, and the clock is ticking. Yet the majority are still living as if nothing is happening, convinced tomorrow will look like today. That's the trap. That's the comfort zone that destroys entire generations. And that's why this is the final alert. Act now or regret later. Regret doesn't arrive in an instant. It sneaks in slowly, disguised as "I'll do it tomorrow," or "I'll get serious when I have more time." But the truth is, tomorrow doesn't wait for you. Opportunity doesn't wait for you. Crises don't wait for you. They come, they hit, and by the time you realize it, you're already too late. The window has closed, the damage is done, and regret sets in. Look back at every financial collapse, every market downturn, every historic reset. The patterns repeat themselves. Before the storm, people convince themselves it's different this time. Before the crash, they say the system is strong. Before the reset, they're distracted, unprepared, and overconfident. Then it happens, the domino falls, the system snaps, and panic replaces confidence overnight. Those who prepared look like prophets. Those who didn't are left scrambling, selling, losing, regretting, and regret is heavier than discipline ever was. The final alert isn't about fear, it's about urgency. Urgency to look at your finances, your skills, your business, and ask yourself, if everything around me collapsed tomorrow, would I be ready? If my job disappeared, if markets froze, if banks restricted access, would I be able to adapt? Or would I be another name on the long list of people who waited too long to act? These are questions most avoid because they're uncomfortable. But reality doesn't care about comfort. Reality rewards those who prepare and punishes those who don't. Right now, there are opportunities hidden in plain sight, assets undervalued, skills that will define the next decade, technologies reshaping industries. But most people won't touch them until they've already peaked, until the crowd is piling in. By then, the profits are gone and the risks are higher. Acting early feels uncomfortable, but it's the only way to win. Acting late feels safe, but it's the surest way to lose. Acting now doesn't mean reckless moves. It means intentional preparation. It means cutting liabilities, stacking cash, building multiple income streams, and acquiring skills that machines can't replace. It means positioning yourself to not just survive chaos but thrive in it. Because make no mistake, the storm isn't a possibility, it's inevitable, and when it hits, the only question will be whether you acted or whether you waited. The harsh truth is that most people will ignore this alert. They'll keep wasting time, chasing distractions, living paycheck to paycheck, hoping someone else will save them. They'll watch the signs but pretend not to see them, and when the collapse comes, they'll say nobody could have seen it coming. But that's a lie. The signs were there all along. They just chose not to act, but there's always a minority. The few who listen, the few who prepare, the few who act before it's comfortable. They'll be the ones buying assets when everyone else is selling. They'll be the ones creating businesses while others are filing for bankruptcy. They'll be the ones building wealth in silence while the majority drown in noise. That's the difference between those who lead and those who follow. Between those who build empires and those who regret forever. Regret is the cost of inaction. It's heavier than failure because failure teaches you something. Regret teaches you nothing. it just haunts you. And the only way to avoid regret is simple: act now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when the conditions are perfect now, because there is no perfect moment. Waiting for the perfect moment is the reason most people never start, never build, never win. The perfect moment is an illusion. The present moment is the only reality. This is your final alert. Whatever you've been postponing, start it. Whatever you've been avoiding, face it. Whatever you've been delaying, execute it. Because once the window closes, no amount of wishing will open it again. No amount of regret will reverse what you refused to do when you had the chance. The future will be divided into two groups: those who acted and those who regretted. The ones who acted will own assets, skills, and influence that set them apart for decades. The ones who regretted will spend their lives replaying the moment they ignored the alert, the moment they chose comfort over courage. You already know where this is heading. You can feel it. The alarms are ringing, the patterns are clear, and the decision is in your hands. Act now, and you step into power. Delay, and you step into regret. The choice is simple, but the consequences are permanent. This is the final alert. No more excuses, no more waiting, no more pretending. Act now, or regret later. So here's the final alert: zero panic. Zero delay, zero excuse. It's time to go from zero to CEO. Because financial systems don't send reminders, opportunities in crisis don't wait. Act now, or watch everything you've built wash away. You're not just an audience, you're future CEO. This crisis is your launch pad. Ready, set, go build your empire.